County, 2023. Count 1, the grand jurors upon their oath do present that Jason Chen, on or about the 23rd day of November 2022 in Hamilton County, Tennessee, and before the finding of this indictment, did unlawfully, intentionally, and with premeditation inflict mortal injuries on Jasmine Pace, which resulted in the death of Jasmine Pace on or about the 23rd day of November 2023 in violation of Tennessee Code Annotated 39-13-202 against the peace and dignity of the state.
How does Mr. Chen plead to count 1?
Not guilty.
General?
Count 2. The grand jurors upon their oath do present that Jason Chen, on or about the 23rd day of November 2022 in Hamilton County, Tennessee, and before the finding of this indictment, did knowingly, without legal privilege, physically mistreat a corpse in a manner offensive to the sensibilities of an ordinary person, or disposed of a corpse in a manner known to be in violation of the law, in violation of Tennessee Code Annotated 39-17-312 against the peace and dignity of the state. This indictment was signed by the District Attorney General and was filed with the Clerk of the Courts on March the 23rd, 2023.
How does Mr. Chen plead to count 2?
Not guilty. General, you may open the jury.
This is the suitcase in which Jason Chen stuffed the 98-pound body of Jasmine Pace. That's where I'm going to begin this story. Except I want you to remember that as you hear evidence in the next week, that this is not a story like the one that you read in a novel where you have to imagine the appearances of characters. The evidence that you will hear in this case is very real. The evidence will not require that you use your imagination. Jasmine Pace was very real, and Jason Chen really killed her. The suitcase was located in a brushy area just yards from the bank of the Tennessee River and right off of Suck Creek Road. In it was the body of Jasmine Pace, who had been placed in a fetal position inside of 3 black trash bags. Her right ankle was handcuffed to her right wrist. Her left ankle had been shackled to her right arm. Her wounds were extensive. You will hear from Dr. Cogswell, the medical examiner for Hamilton County, who will describe those wounds in great detail. He stabbed her over and over and over again, not 7 times, not 29 times, not 43 times, but 60 stab wounds. One wound, a through and through, from the right side of the neck all the way through the left. Another so deeply penetrated her rib cage that the tip of the knife broke off into her lung. You will see the tip of that knife. The state of Tennessee is required to prove to you 3 elements for first-degree premeditated murder. The first is that Jasmine was intentionally killed. The second is that it was with premeditation. You will hear facts and evidence. You will see photos. You will hear from witnesses that allow you to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that she was intentionally killed and that premeditation was involved. But the third element is that the state of Tennessee has to prove that he did it.
I told you when we were in Nashville that I wouldn't waste your precious time. I have no intention to waste it during the course of this trial. In the early morning hours of November 23rd, 2022, Jason Chen killed Jasmine Pace. He didn't do it with premeditation. This is a voluntary manslaughter case. Voluntary manslaughter is the intentional or knowing killing of another in a state of passion produced by adequate provocation, sufficient to lead a reasonable person to act in an unreasonable manner. The state told you during jury selection that in order to prove first-degree murder, they don't have to prove that force commitment, but there wasn't. The state told you in jury selection that they don't have to prove a motive. There isn't. What the state does have to do is prove premeditation, and it can't, because there wasn't. Jason Chen is a first-generation Chinese American. He grew up in Nolensville. His parents worked at a Chinese restaurant, worked very hard bringing him up. On the night of November the 22nd, they were drinking wine in the back bedroom. You're going to see pictures of the apartment. This apartment is 500 square feet. You can get from the front door to the back door or back wall less than 10 seconds walking on it. Very small apartment. In order to open one of the bottles of wine in the bedroom, Jason had to go to the kitchen and get a kitchen knife to take off that plastic wrapper that goes around the top of wine bottles. So he was able to get off the top of the wine bottle, the plastic wrapper, and he placed it on his nightstand. At a certain point, they finish off the bottle of wine, and Jasmine goes back into the kitchen to get another bottle. And there on the counter is Jason's cell phone. Ding, 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 ding. That familiar Tinder ding that Jasmine and Jason knew so well because that's how they met. Jasmine looked at his phone and saw all these messages with other girls, with other people. And this was infuriating to her. She was already in grief, and it sent her in anger into a rage, and they started yelling and fighting verbally. Jason came into the kitchen, and you're going to hear from witnesses that can hear both of them arguing. You're going to hear from witnesses that heard this dispute, not the words, but to hear them yelling. Jasmine attacked Jason with an empty wine bottle, and in reaction, Jason kicked her, and she fell backwards, knocking over wine glasses. She picked up one of the wine glasses and ran towards Jason, and Jason retreated, going from the kitchen to his bedroom, which you have to go through the bathroom. She chased after him, and he was trying to close the door to the bathroom, but couldn't because the bath mat got in the way. Then tried to run from the bathroom into the bedroom, but there was a pocket door, and it's impossible to close. And he gets back into his bedroom, and Jasmine's right there, coming at him with this broken glass. Jason sees the knife, and he reacts. And he stabs. He blacked out. Your heart is racing. You're in that fight or flight response. Your adrenaline is rushing. You're in a panic. You're in a fear. You don't know what's going to happen next. And he panicked.
When was the last time you saw Jasmine?
November 22nd, 2022.
Do you know about what time, what day she left your house for the last time?
It was about 11 o'clock at night, I guess. I received a message from Jasmine's phone on the 23rd, which at the time I didn't pay attention to the wording, because I was so upset about my grandmother. But on the 26th, when I started getting really concerned, I went back and I read the text again, and the wording said, I'm going with my girlfriend, Emma, to spend Thanksgiving in South Carolina, which Jasmine wouldn't have texted me introducing Emma as her girlfriend because I knew Emma.
Did you reach out to Emma's family?
I did, her grandmother.
And what'd you learn?
Jasmine had not been there with her.
Was that really what sparked your significant concern that something could be wrong?
Yes.
And so then you testified that you went to Verizon, is that correct?
Yes.
Catrina, is that your daughter?
It is.
Is that her valid driver's license?
Yes.
Underneath that driver's license, are those her credit cards that you took from Jason Chen's apartment?
Yes.
Is this a photo of other items that were taken from Mr. Chen's apartment?
Yes.
Including that cell phone on top, it looks like some clothing items.
Yes.
Do you recall in November of 2022 being contacted by investigators with the Chattanooga Police Department about possible video footage or evidence of receipts?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall who that was?
I don't remember the name exactly.
A female, male?
It was male.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you often pull security footage for law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that one of your roles?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any way to pull receipts from past purchases?
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you do that?
We have a certain system that we go through, so we can either use a credit card, or if we have a date or a specific time, and we know the register, we can also pull it up.
Okay. Showing you 2 jump drives, you can touch them and look at them. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
Have you viewed the matters on those jump drives?
Yes, both of them.
Both of them?
Yes.
Have you initialed on those jump drives to signify that you've seen the footage on those?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's on those jump drives?
Video footage of the 2 incidences from that day.
Okay, that you had delivered to the Chattanooga Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Ms. Campbell, is there a way in the Walgreens system to connect a purchase with a video surveillance
Yes.
capture?
Typically, if we have a dollar amount or last 4 of a card number, we can search and find times when those purchases were made, and then we'd use that to look at the video to see what happened.
Do you recall if that was done for law enforcement as it relates to these 2 videos?
Yes.
Did you look up the receipts that were connected with those 2 videos?
Yes.
And how did you do that in this case? By card number, by the video? Do you recall?
It was by the card numbers. They had left up the screen where they had looked at one transaction, and then I looked up to see if there was any other purchases that day, and found another one, which was the second, I believe the second set of videos that we found.
Okay. And you were able to extract those receipts for law enforcement?
Yes.
Were you also able to look at the receipts and verify that they coordinated with the 2 videos that you had given law enforcement?
Yes, because you'll see the time that it happened and the register number, so you can relate the 2 together.
I'm going to draw your attention to November 2022. Do you recall being on, working on shift on November 26, 2022?
Yes, ma'am, I believe so.
Do you recall on that day being called to 900 Mountain Creek Road?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you remember about that call?
I remember it came out as a missing persons call, and that, you know, they were concerned about their adult daughter having not been in contact with her for quite some time, which was very much so unlike her. And so I responded on scene to meet with the complainant, Ms. Catrina.
And were you the only patrol officer that arrived on, at Mount Creek Road that night?
Yes, ma'am.
You were by yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said you recall, meeting Catrina, are you talking about the victim's mother in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you recall who else was there?
I believe her husband was there, and then a friend or family member. I don't recall the exact relation, but there was someone else there with them.
Had you known anything about this missing person, except for what you learned when you arrived there at 900 Mount Creek Road? Did you know anything else about it?
No, ma'am, no.
Okay. Do you recall the individuals there naming a person of interest?
I do recall them mentioning after, discussing more of the details, that she had been seeing someone fairly recently by the name of Jason Chen. And they questioned, if we should reach out to him and possibly try contacting him to see if he knows any more information about where Jasmine could possibly be.
Do you recall if Catrina on that night did call Jason?
Yes, ma'am, she did.
Was that phone call on speakerphone?
Yes.
Could you hear Mr. Chen or Jason?
Yes, I could hear parts of the conversation. There were numerous people there I was also speaking to as well, so I did not catch the entire conversation, but I did hear where, Miss Catrina asked him, where he lived and when the last time he spoke to Jasmine was.
When he was asked where he lived, do you recall what he said?
I don't recall the exact address. I do recall finding out after the fact that it was the incorrect address.
Do you recall when he said the last time was that he saw Jasmine?
I do not recall the specific date, but I do recall when Miss Catrina asked him that question, she muted the phone and advised me that she had pulled phone records and that he was not telling the truth because she had seen that they had contacted each other the day after that he was claiming he had last spoken to her.
While you were out there, did you consider calling a missing persons investigator?
Yes, ma'am, and I did so.
Yeah, and which missing persons investigator was that?
I requested dispatch put the on-call missing persons investigator phone number on the CAD dispatch card for me, and it was Investigator Blunt that I made contact with that evening.
What does on-call mean?
On-call means, if it's late at night or something like that for that weekend or that time period during the week, if it's after business hours, you're the person that gets contacted.
And that was Investigator Blunt?
Investigator Blunt was who I was referred to and who I spoke to that evening. Yes,
She
ma'am.
works in the missing persons division?
Yes, ma'am.
And how'd you feel about calling Investigator Blunt that night?
I was not too excited, if I'm being frank.
Why?
Me and her do not get along too well.
Okay. And did you relay the information that you had been given by Jasmine Pace's family?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I gave her the complaint number, all the information that I knew. I even mentioned the possible boyfriend or person that Mr. Chen that she had been speaking to, and conveyed that her parents were quite concerned over the matter and that they would like to be contacted at some point.
What'd she say?
She said, okay, go ahead and forward me the information and, I'll reach out to them.
Did anyone else from the police department come out to Mount Creek Road that night?
No, ma'am.
Were you able to give to Jasmine's family Investigator Blunt's phone number?
I don't believe I gave them her phone number specifically. Typically, we wait for the investigators to reach out to the family members and victims.
So, to your knowledge, that night, while you were there, Investigator Blunt did not speak with the Pace family?
To my knowledge, no.
Did she ask you, hey, will you hand the phone to them so I can talk to them?
No.
You didn't do that?
No.
So, in your capacity as a patrol officer, what were you able to do for Jasmine's family that night?
So for that evening, I explained to them, which I also did, that I had Jasmine entered into the NCIC, national database as a missing person, so that if anyone was ever to locate her and run her information, it would pop up bright red on the screen, missing person. And then I would contact a missing persons investigator, give them all the information that they just conveyed to me, give them my complaint number. But as of right now, in my position where I was at, like that is the most that I can do.
Sure. So in November of 2022, you were obviously working in this position.
I was.
And you were working at night.
That is
During
correct.
the night hours.
Yes.
And do you recall being contacted by the Chattanooga Police Department, specifically Officer Mackenzie Pierre,
Yes,
about
that-
the family that was in the
That is correct. He
parking lot?
requested me to come down and speak to him.
And do you recall what the circumstances were?
The found vehicle was the initial, and then obviously the missing person.
Okay, did you communicate with the family there
I did.
on the grounds? And, at some point, were you asked about video footage?
I was.
Does Signal View, the condo complex have video footage?
They do.
Okay, did they at the time in November 2022?
They did.
And when you were asked about if you could look at that, what was your initial response?
I could, the camera footage we used, I couldn't look at from the property because it's, the complex had it installed from the EPB, so the video footage is stored off-site at their server. So I had to go home to access it from my personal computer.
So you can access a camera that was installed by EPB from your actual home?
Yes.
And do you often access that camera when the need arises?
Yes, if I'm questioned about a certain time frame.
And does that happen every so often?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And on this night, did you let the parties or the police know that you were gonna have to go home to look for that?
I did.
Were you instructed by anyone as to what specific time frame you were supposed to look for?
I believe so from the evidence that her mother had provided me from the time frame of when the car had arrived there, that which narrowed down the time frame.
Do you recall at some point the family coming back, after their first visit, did they come back to Mount Creek
They
Road?
did, they did.
And what was that for?
We discussed, I believe, footage and then some phone data that they were discussing about our phone being to the different location.
Did you review the video footage there with them?
That footage, I did not, because I
Okay.
cannot.
Did you retrieve it at that time for the Pace family, Jasmine's family, or did you later give it to the Chattanooga Police Department?
I remember later giving it to the Chattanooga Police Department.
Okay, and do you recall what day that video footage was from?
I don't have no idea. You would have to tell me what day it was from.
Okay, so.
I just know it was around Thanksgiving.
Okay, and you pulled the footage at the request of the Chattanooga Police Department?
Yes,
And it was from the Signal View condos, which you
Yes.
had access to?
that is
All
correct.
right. Can you jump drive? And the direction that that vehicle is traveling on the video, is it towards the area that Jasmine Pace's vehicle was located?
Yes, it would be about 100 yards or so away from
Okay.
where it was left.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge? All right. Investigator Crawford, did this indicate to investigators that there is a possible presence of blood in what are the blue areas?
Correct.
State's Exhibit 27. Again, another photo that shows blue star reaction.
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 28. More blue star reaction. You can actually see it up there in this photo. State's Exhibit 29.
Shows a positive reaction.
State's Exhibit 30. Where in Mr. Chen's apartment are we standing at this point, Investigator Crawford?
Currently, this photograph is taken from the perspective of inside of the single bedroom. It's actually pointing down through what appears to be a hallway. It's actually, what you see is a The lighter colored area at the bottom of the photograph is going to be a carpeted area. You see a door frame. Just past that is a tiled area. It's going to be a small bathroom on the left-hand side. Essentially, you have a shower. On the right-hand side, you have a toilet, sink, and mirror. Directly through that goes into the living room and kitchen area back towards the front door of the residence.
And on the television screen, if Jerome Moyle has, you'll have to look here because you can't see it up there because the lighting's not good. There's a piece of carpet missing.
That's correct.
Who did that?
Crime scene unit.
Collected that piece of carpet as evidence?
Yes, they did.
Okay. State's Exhibit 31. Again, same view, just different lighting.
That's
In
correct.
Mr. Chen's bedroom.
That's correct.
What you can see in this right-hand side over here, is that Mr. Chen's bed?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 32. What is this object?
That's going to be on the back side of the front door of the residence.
Right when you walk in?
That's correct. As soon as you walk in.
State's Exhibit 33. Another angle, same doorway.
That's correct.
This shows State's Exhibit 34. This shows a little bit of a different angle. Again, you can now see this, the removal of this carpet was done by the crime scene unit.
Yes, that's correct.
For what purposes would that have been?
During the initial walkthrough and documentation of the scene, we observed a dark reddish brown discoloration on the carpet that was consistent with blood. They collected that carpeted sample at that time prior to Blue Star being administered. They wouldn't want Blue Star administered to potentially saturate that blood or potentially do anything to it at that time.
Okay, and then lastly, State's Exhibit 35.
That's going to be a photograph of the bathroom sink inside of that small bathroom area. Inside this photograph, you will see a picture of, like I said, the bathroom sink inside of the single bathroom inside of the apartment. On the photograph, and you can hardly tell from where you're sitting, but there's multiple areas where you see a positive Blue Star reaction. You can see this bright colored area here. If you back out on the sink itself, you can see the reaction on top of the sink, and near appears to be shading product right there. If you look down in the sink, you can actually see what appears to be a positive reaction inside the sink when we put down some